Hello guys and welcome to episode 8 of the Revive Yourself podcast. Here we go.
Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Have you got a health issue that just won't go away no matter what you try? Then welcome to the Revive Yourself podcast, where we reveal the secrets to long-lasting health by getting to the root cause of problems that no one else is talking about. So you can have more energy, clear skin, healthier hair, a leaner physique, more confidence, and most importantly, do the things you love and live the life you deserve. Here's your host, Ryan Martin.
Hey guys and welcome to episode 8 of the Revive Yourself with Ryan Martin. So today's guest is Toay, and he makes his own kombucha and cultured vegetables, etc. And he's been doing it for quite a long while now, and he's got his own brand at www.probiotics.com, and I think it's really important for you guys to get interviews not just with doctors, but with normal people that have gone through their own health issues and have done things a different way. So I thought, I actually first saw Jared over Instagram, which I'll go into a little bit at the beginning of the interview, and I messaged him and I thought it's be a really good chance to get someone like him and his story out to people. So here he is. Hope you enjoy the episode. And, as always, any feedback's much appreciated, and I'll see you on the other side. Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Revive Yourself with Ryan Martin. Today's guest is Toay. Is that how you say it, Jared?
It's Toy. It's pronounced just like what you would think Toy, but yeah, Toy.
Toy. And he's from, well, he actually is a CEO, and he's got his own website at www.gerardpropops.com. We actually first connected over Instagram. He's got quite a cool Instagram page over on there, guys, if you want to jump on there and see all the things he's coming up with. I think the first time we actually connected, it was because he was brewing his own fermented beer. So I'm looking forward to that coming out. So today's show is going to be all about probiotics, fermented foods. It's something that Gerard seems to be really big into, and he's got very passionate about this. So just going to say welcome, Gerard, to the show. How's Oklahoma this morning?
It is good. It's I always say that I woke up right and vertical, so it's always a good day in Oklahoma when you can do that. So it's a little chilly, but I love it though. It's a great place to be. You ever been here?
I haven't actually been to Oklahoma. I've done quite a bit of America, but never. I actually do want to go to Oklahoma. It's on the schedule. The next stop, I think, it's going to be Chicago, but then Oklahoma is going to be up there.
Well, good.
Well, good. Yeah, I need to get down there. So just for the audience out there. Just tell us a little bit about your story, your background, and how you got into making probiotic drinks. I had a little look around the website, did some research into you, and it seems that you've had your own health issues. Is that correct?
Yeah. By the way, thanks for having me, and I welcome everybody.
No worries.
I appreciate you giving the opportunity. I mean, it's kind of funny, Ryan, is that everybody has issues associated with health. And, the thing is that whether or not that you're willing to share that. And so I had some stressful times in my life, going through a period in my life. And I noticed that, when people get stressed significantly, one of two things happen. You either eat too much or you don't eat enough. And I was the type that I just really stopped eating. And I was, as I said, I was under a significant amount of stress, and I became depressed, and it was just kind of this horrible cycle of just complete bad health, and I lost a lot of weight, and I had one of those what I call an aha moment, and the aha moment for me was just basically just looking at myself and realized that it was just a shell of my former self. I was about 130 pounds, which for me is not a good look. That's I don't know. I don't know what that would be in kilograms.
It's about 62.
Yeah, I was going to say, about 62 kilograms. So that wasn't a good look for me. It was just one of those things, as I said, I just needed to make some changes. And what happened is that I just started to eat, and I noticed that not necessarily that I was feeling great. It's just that I was a little bit more mobile. I was going outside, kind of getting out of this shell a little bit. And so I started to eat more. And then what happened is I went from that 130 pounds to about 200 pounds, which is about, maybe 90 some odd kilos. But, and as I said, that wasn't a good look for me either. And in that process, what happened is I had a significant amount of just digestion issues. And I don't know, I'm looking at your website, I'm sure that probably many of your listeners or readers, when you eat, and when it becomes so bad that you actually have to look for foods that you just cannot eat, that to me is just not an enjoyable experience, because my digestion was absolutely, in a wreck. And I just, as I said, I spent more time trying to figure out things that I couldn't eat, and that wasn't good at all. So I started to, by chance, my mother, when I was growing up, really loved sauerkraut for some reason, but I came across this brand of sauerkraut at one of the neighborhood health food stores, tried it, and immediately I noticed that things started to change a little bit. And, if you've ever been constipated or just couldn't go to the bathroom, that's really a pretty big moment for people. And I did. And so I, was trying to take survey really of some things that, happened, and it was fermented foods, or at least the sauerkraut. And so I started to incorporate a little bit more of it, and I started to actually just eat it all the time. Probably too much at the time. But it just started to change my whole outlook. And that sounds to some, kind of hokey, but I tell people is that your gut and your brain are basically made of the same material, the same type of tissue. And when you can actually, go through the day with a great attitude, or maybe the ability to cognitively think about certain things, I mean, that's digestively related. It's basically saying that your body is getting the foods that it needs, and it's able to basically just create an awesome living being. So I, started to feel a little bit better. And again, I kind of came out of this depression, and I just noticed a significant difference. And what happened is that, I started to exercise more. I became a bodybuilder. But again, my whole thing was in terms of foods. I didn't take any supplements or, medications, anything along that lines. I just really started to focus on foods, and made it really a pact to myself to try to figure out what was so interesting about fermented foods. And, that journey led me to make everything from cheeses and breads and dairy products and drinks, and basically anything that I could get my hands on. I was really obsessive about trying new things and giving them to my kids. And that kind of just grew into the business. I started to, kind of make some things that people liked, and really tried to help people get to that better place of happiness through good digestion and good natural foods, as opposed to a significant amount of supplements. So that in a couple of minutes, I guess, is about my story. Certainly there's a lot of other things in there, but it was, I attribute most of my ability to, get to where I am right now, health-wise and weight-wise, to fermented foods. And I do eat fermented foods and drink fermented drinks every single day. So that is my story.
Oh. Scott, I mean, it's most people who get into this sort of industry have generally gone through some sort of health issue themselves. I'd say probably upwards of 85-90%. So it's always good for people out there to realise that when people are on the other side of that and they're looking good, it's always I find always beneficial for people to realise that you haven't always been that way, and you've had to take the path. So it's always good to hear people's stories and how they got there. You mentioned that you didn't ever, even when you were feeling ill and stressed, you didn't actually ever take any medications. Why was that? Was that to do with your mother?
There were a whole host of issues, but again, that's kind of the default for most people. And if there's anything wrong, you probably know many people, or your listeners do. Again, there's always a pill for every ill. And I just found that was just the solution to everybody's suggestion on how I could feel better, how I could get better. And I didn't feel a calling to do that. It sounds, no pun intended, I just didn't have that gut feeling that was the way that I needed to do that. Mm-hmm. I'm a different person anyway, meaning that I like to take my own path. And the thing is that I figured out that I felt better through foods, and I wanted to explore that. So I didn't, I was again, just had an aha moment. I really wanted to focus on that because I thought that was the path to better health, at least for me. It may not work for everybody, but again, the idea in medication just really, it's like you have a tree or a flower. Basically, if you have issues and you want that flower to grow, you're not going to mist the leaves. What you're going to be doing is that you want to water the roots. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I view better health, is that, medications are great. If you want to put some really nice things on, and mix it with water and spray the leaves, that's basically, how I view it. But, in order to really get to the root of the problem, or to the root of the growing that nice flower, you have to have a strong foundation, and that foundation is in your digestive system. And basically that's the core, what I believe is, the core aspect of just better health. Yeah. So that's what I did, is I just focused on it. It may not work for everybody, but again, it was just one of those things that I just decided that my passion was foods, and that's what I wanted to pursue.
I'm going to cut in there and just say, I think getting your digestive health right is going to work for everybody. Just on, as part of, always go back to it. Know that you say the root cause of stuff, people out there listening, I think if you get your digestive health right, it's going to benefit you in, every single way possible. But I do understand what you're saying there about the medication, and why you did that. And it's always refreshing to hear someone else's story and why you did that. So, just for our audience out there, some of them I know are well versed in fermented foods and cultured foods and probiotics, but for those that aren't, first of all, what's the difference between fermented foods and probiotic drinks, and really, what are they, and what are their benefits?
Sure, it's a great question. It's not really, it's not really one as the other. What happens? Mm-hmm. A fermented food is a fermented food. It's basically just a type of, process of how you make things, really easier for your body to digest. And probiotics is basically, in the bacteria which creates the probiotics, is what happens when you ferment foods. It's not one or the other. So when you ferment foods, what I try to do and explain to people, really the easiest way to think about fermented foods without getting into too much detail is when you ferment foods, basically all you're doing is just making it easier for your body to digest. Mm-hmm. So if you think about fermented foods, or even if it's not fermented foods, you eat something, basically your body has to break down that food, processed fruits, vegetables. It has to break it down into usable parts that your body can absorb the nutrients, vitamins, and minerals from that food. So when you ferment it, basically what you're doing is you're kind of jump-starting that process of easier digestion. And when you ferment things, all you're doing is that you are breaking down the sugars and the starches in that food. And so by doing that, by breaking down those sugars and starches, again, it is what's called more bioavailable, which means that the nutrients from those foods your body can use, and it doesn't have to work so hard to break it down. So, it's like, you could eat a pine cone. I'd throw this out there. If you wanted to, you could eat a pine cone. Now, again, the body wouldn't know what to do with it, and it would be very uncomfortable. It would be very hard to digest. It probably would hurt going down. There's a whole lot of things that would happen if you tried to eat a pine cone. However, let's say that if you wanted to, you figured out some way to ferment a pine cone, or actually make it softer, more pliable, make it tasty, whatever that may be. If you could do that, your body could use any nutrients from that pine cone more efficiently. And so when you think about fermenting, that's, what most people, and the easiest way to explain it is just picture it more liquid or soft. And again, that's very, very generic, Ryan, but my point is that when you do that, it just naturally, you think about it's easier to digest. Mm-hmm. So when you ferment things, that's what you're doing. Probiotics are just simply what happens when the bacteria, or just the living components of those foods, basically just live, and it creates probiotics. You have yeast, there's a whole host of things, but probiotics are basically just living organisms, or living bacteria that happens or is created when you ferment foods. And probiotics are, as I said, you have probiotics living all over your body. But what most people think about is the probiotics in your gut. But, if you wash your hands with antibacterial soap.
Something we're going to get into later. Yeah, cool. Yeah, go on.
So the probiotics are basically good living bacteria that you have. And, the probiotics, it's basically just good and bad. You have good bacteria and you have bad bacteria. And what we want to try to do, or what I want to try to do with my foods and basically educate people is it's more beneficial to have 10 times, 20 times, 100 times, 1,000 times more good bacteria than it is the bad bacteria. So that's what we try to do with fermented foods. And that's the easiest way, again, to create a fermented or probiotic food is, again, to make it easier for those living bacteria to populate, live, prosper, and have a great life.
Okay.
I hope that was. That make? I think it made a little bit of sense. But most people don't. They think it's really complicated. But all, as I said, all a probiotic or when you ferment things, you're just breaking down the sugars and starches. It makes it easier for your body to use the nutrients, and there in turn you get more energy from those foods.
So it's basically a way that your body can absorb, assimilate, and metabolize, digest, and then eliminate foods a lot easier and actually use those nutrients. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And to your point a little bit earlier, when I was talking about, I was specifically speaking about medication. Maybe it is or isn't for everybody. But yes, in terms of digestion, that's the good thing about, and that's the powerful thing of what I do and what you do, is that it doesn't matter really your lifestyle around. You could smoke, you could drink, you could party, you could eat processed foods, McDonald's, you could do CrossFit. I mean, yoga. Everybody eats food for a specific reason. And that specific reason is to really just to power through the day, whatever that day entails. Mm-hmm. And so the commonality that we all have together is that ability to digest foods. And so that's why it's easy for me to talk to anybody about better digestion, because I'm not, saying that you have to eat this much protein and this much carbohydrates and, this is what you have to eat these vegetables every single day. Okay, great. If you want to do that, then let's focus on that root, just like that flour. Let's focus on that root. What's going to get it good and strong is actually being able to better digest all of the foods that you eat.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree, and I think I've seen a stat, especially in America. I mean, it's the same in the UK, but in America, when it comes to digestion, peristalsis, actually going to the toilet, constipation, I think it's like 90 to 95% of all Americans are actually constipated. So, getting their digestion correct is going to be huge for everyone. It's an amazing, and again, I'm comfortable talking about it. It's amazing how many people actually say that they only go to the bathroom maybe once every couple of days. Oh, no, amazing.
Or to me, again,
I'm 2-3 times a day. I'm just going to put it out there.
Again, there's that fine line certainly, but it's obviously all, in terms of weight and extra weight and being overweight, all it is just waste that your body hasn't figured out how to get rid of. Mm-hmm. And so, the idea is that you can become fit and, be your ideal weight through better digestion of foods and just elimination of those foods.
100%. I mean, we can get into, I might have to get you on the show again. I know you're quite strapped for time today, but we can go into things like parasites and pathogens and bacteria and toxins and stuff, but maybe we'll do that for another time because it'll go quite deep. But because I just want to give people sort of a basic sort of understanding before we go into all that, because it can be quite, as you say, don't overwhelm people, but it's something that this needs to be discussed more and more. And luckily, the platforms, even like yourself, selling these in a lot of different outlets, and even though you've seen Whole Foods now, they're selling a lot of these things. It is actually getting out there more, which is good. So people can actually go and buy different types of products that are going to help their digestion. Not all of them are as high quality as others, which same as everything, right? Everything's got a different quality level. So it's good anyway that people like yourself are putting this out, because more and more people need this in their life. So just going into, so it's covered fermented foods and probiotics. Just quickly, cultured foods and prebiotics, what's the difference with those?
Well, again, cultured foods is most people, it's synonymous with just what fermented foods are.
Okay,
So I mean, there are different way. There are different way to culture foods. You know, you can again, when you talk about culturing foods, if you were to say that, most people again think about dairy, I would bet. So but again, you can culture any type of food. Dairy. Remember what I was talking about, Ryan, about breaking down the sugars and starches. When you culture dairy or a milk product, basically you're just breaking down the lactase, which is that milk sugar. So, but culturing, again, it's that process of the fermentation. Prebiotics, if you can think about prebiotics, it's essentially just food that probiotics live off of. Again, you are a living organism, you are a living being. So everything, it doesn't live in a vacuum. So, you have all parts of your body that needs nutrients, and probiotics are no different. Probiotics or living life, whatever you wanted to classify it. But prebiotics are just simply foods that the probiotics in your body live off of. So, that's kind of I think very hard for people to understand, is that you could take a significant amount of probiotics, whether it's, supplement form, but again, if they don't have the foods necessary to eat and to populate your gut and to live and prosper, then it's really very difficult to become healthy. So prebiotics, things like, inulin, or, it's basically just a fiber, and so prebiotics, I just think like a cow, even though that it's not. But what a cow does, cow just grazes and lives and eats grass, basically. So when you're probiotics, it just lives in a field all over your body, and those prebiotics are the grass that it feeds off of. So as long as there's something that's good, healthy grass, if you think, things like garlic or leeks, there's the whole host of things that you can eat or you can give your body. But prebiotics are just as important as having or taking probiotic pills or supplements, whatever you want to do.
Okay.
Again, so prebiotics, that's all it is. It's foods that your probiotics need in order to survive and make your gut good and healthy.
No, awesome. That's a great answer. Just because I know a lot of people out there do get confused between the two, or are confused with what they do, and so it's good just to have that cleared up for everyone. Yeah, on your site, you've also got quite a lot of information out there about enzymes, and one of the things you've actually put is, you said, where do enzymes come from? What foods do they and don't they break down? And optimum nutrition isn't possible unless you use them properly. Can you just talk about that a little bit for us? Yeah,
enzymes are what I like to say is that again, I love illustrations. I'm not very smart, Ryan, so if somebody can paint a picture, really, that works much better for me. So, if you think about enzymes, all foods basically have some sort of enzymes. And what happens is those enzymes help your body to break down the foods. Tomatoes have enzymes. All fruits and vegetables basically have enzymes associated with that. Your body creates enzymes, but the way that it does that is through good, healthy probiotics. So if you have, I use the illustration of, you picture that your intestine, Ryan, it's, let's say just a tube, and on the outside of that tube, on the inner lining of that tube are, things that look like toothbrush bristles. And so those toothbrush bristles, they kind of, wave and move, and that tube, let's imagine that it is your digestive system. So that if you eat something, it passes down this tube. Now what happens is that you have those little toothbrush bristles that secrete enzymes, which are like scissors. So you have a piece of food that goes down that tube, and in order for you to get the nutrients, let's say inside the nutrients are vitamins A, B, C, D, whatever is inside of that. In order to get to that and those nutrients, you have to break it down. So let's say that the enzymes are like scissors that basically help to break down that food. The enzymes are secreted by the probiotics, or those living bacteria, to basically, as I said, to help break down those foods so that your body can use the nutrients from them. So again, enzymes are, that's just a sledgehammer of foods, or of our body. Basically, all it's trying to do is help and assist the probiotics get the good nutrients from them.
It's a very good way of putting it. So it's why people struggle to break down dairy, because they don't have the right enzymes to break down the lactose, correct?
Break down the lactase, right?
So lactase, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's what most people don't realize. Again, somebody that says that they're lactose intolerant, basically, it's if you don't have a strong digestion system, and let's say those villi are, trying to move around, but they don't have a good root system. Remember what I was talking about, the roots, the grass. If it doesn't have that, what happens is it basically just withers away or atrophies, and it's not being used. Well, those toothbrush bristles that secrete the lactose that breaks down the lactase, as the illustration that you use, if it's not doing it properly, basically it just starts to wither away. And so that when you have those milk sugars that go down the digestive tract, and you don't have the ability to break down those sugars, what happens is those particles of sugar get lodged in between those toothbrush bristles. And what happens is it just creates a little bit of a tear, and then those particles get in your bloodstream, and that's really what causes general reactions, intolerances, allergies, etc. So
inflammation, etc.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean that's what it does. So in order to not have it get into your bloodstream and cause that inflammation or the intolerances or your body's basically attacking it, you just have to have the strong probiotics, which again it secretes those enzymes. So if you have those toothbrush bristles, what they do is they secrete lactose, which is the enzyme to help break down lactase, which is that milk sugar, as I mentioned. So yes, that's basically how it is. And again, if you have a lawn, and a healthy lawn is not where you have several missing patches of grass.
Correct.
A healthy lawn is where it's green, it's lush. Every single component of that grass or of that lawn is covered in grass. It looks strong and healthy, and that's the way your digestive tract is. If you have patches where there's no good probiotics or basic something, they're just the bare spots. That's how food gets in your bloodstream. That causes allergies and inflammation again. So that, in a nutshell, is, I think, a pretty easy way to explain it. I sometimes get a little complicated, but
that's come across really well. I think it's very clear. I mean, people in your head, yeah. So when you said first of all, the toothbrush bristles are like the villi, so it's for people out there. So that's a really good way to explain it. And that's why, I mean, I think coconut milk kefir and coconut kefir are phenomenal. But people, people can do better even on just normal, raw milk kefir than they do on pasteurized milk because of the process that it's gone through. Is that correct?
Oh, no. Yeah, no. That's 100%. Again, at least here in America, I'm not up to date on the how things are there in the UK, but yeah, all milk, basically it's pasteurized, which means it's heated and they, screen out so that there's really no nutrients left. It's just basically, colored water. And then they add things to it to make it vitamins and nutrient rich is what they try to do. But yes, raw, again, in its natural state is much more efficient for your body than it would be to, buy it out of the carton or, however you get it at the store.
Yeah, I think, come on, carry on, Joe.
Oh, no, that was it. But see, I know when I talk about milk, there are many people that talk about that that they're a vegan or they don't drink it. But again, it's really irrelevant because what I'm trying to do is just reiterate a point: is however you choose to do that. If you do like dairy and you do like ice cream, and that's your preference of choice, but you do have digestive issues, there are ways to get around it. Again, having when you pasteurize something, again, you're taking out all of the natural living organisms and you're putting things that are really not naturally made back into it. And so what happens is that when you do that, your body then has to try to figure out what to do with the stuff that's been added, and it's, again, not having something that's natural. It's just a foreign material, Ryan. And again, your body gets confused sometimes, sometimes it does the right thing, sometimes that it doesn't. But, if you put too many of those foreign materials, i.e. pasteurized milk or, heated foods, whatever.
Processed foods,
yes. Yeah, processed foods in general, you can have some issues. Yep.
Yeah, it's this toxic overload, right? It's accumulation. When that happens, the body has only got a certain amount of toxins that it can take on board before that it can expel before it goes into sort of overload. So 100% agree with what you're saying there. It's a really good way that you've described it as well. I think it'd be quite easy for our listeners to take on board. So just going a couple more questions on enzymes, but you've got something that the guys can go on your site actually and have a little look in and have a read about. I think you've got a free giveaway about enzymes, which I'd say everyone jump on to Gerard's website at www.gerardpropops.com. I'll put that in a link as well. You can download it. But you've got on there, which is the one biggest destroyer of enzymes. Now, what would you say that is?
Oh, you put me on the spot. I mean, there are a lot of things basically, but I mean, you when you heat things, that's generally that kills a lot. I don't know if there was something specific that you were wanting to, but if you heat foods or if you process foods, basically you're decaying those living bacteria. So anything that you can do to kill that bacteria or kill that living food is a destroyer of enzymes. So if there was something specific, certainly we could address it, or I could talk about it. But there are a lot of things actually that can go to damage that process. I mean, but as I said, if you had to.
No. I just wanted your opinion, because the funny thing is, everyone who's a coach or in the health industry, they could all say 10 different things and they could all be right. It's in sometimes it's good to get someone else's point of view, because someone might have concentrated on one thing, someone might be concentrated on another. They both can destroy enzymes to a high level, but it's just interesting to see your take on things. But you're saying, yeah.
No, what I was going to say again, if you think about it, and I don't want to get too high level, but if you think about when you eat, everything is living at some point in time. And whatever you may do, if you just look at a piece of food, and you look at it as at one time that it is a living thing, it was full of bacteria, and you do everything that you can to make sure that those, living components in the foods are intact and healthy, then to me, you're really understanding the whole concept of what food is. So if you take a piece of food, and you inject it with hormones, i.e. a piece of beef, and you put the hormones in the beef because you want to destroy pathogens that, could do a whole host of things to the, cow. Basically, if you look at it that way, you're absorbing all of those toxins. You're absorbing all of the things that the cow eats. So what I try to do, especially when I'm talking to somebody new or, about is, again, how do you view your plate? How do you view the foods that you eat? I mean, do you look at it as vibrant and colorful? Is there a lot of colors to it? Those are all enzymes. Again, if you see a colorful piece of vegetable or fruits, you can probably rest assured that there's still a lot of good enzymes. When you heat foods, and this isn't a raw issue and that you should eat, but I'm saying that if you do things that basically help to destroy the integrity of the food itself, that's how you destroy enzymes and the probiotics and living bacteria. So the more that you do that, the more that you process the food, the more that you put it through several steps to make it taste better, the more sugar that you add, the more there are a host, several things that you can do, Ryan, but the more things that you do to a food to make it taste better, or to make it more palatable, or to make it look colorful on a plate, the more things that you're doing to actually destroy it, healthy, piece of food that would be beneficial to your digestive system.
No, 100% agree. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you've just painted a really good picture. And as you said there, it's almost getting people to think a little bit differently. Like when they say about their food, when you're talking about what's been done to that food before they've even started to eat it, for example. It's another thing, like when you see the way some animals get killed or treated, and it's not just about it is about what they've been fed and what they've been injected with, but the energy that goes through them with the way they've been treated, etc. People just getting to think about things with vibrations, and it's just a different way of thinking about things that it all relates to your health, and especially with enzymes you're talking about. The more you process something, and the more you destroy it in its natural state, it's not gonna. It can go from being good for you to also almost being detrimental for you. So it's a good way of putting it.
I'm sure that in the UK it's probably the same here. What most people do here in America in order to make something more palatable is they just add sugars,
or
salts,
salt,
sugar, salts, non-natural ingredients to make it last longer.
MSG.
Yeah, I mean, so the idea is that, again, I eat meat. I have a different way of eating it. In terms of how I buy my things. But again, that's everybody's personal choice, Ryan. And the idea is that if you just look at foods differently, And, this isn't just to say, hey, love your food. It's the idea, okay, I mean, everybody has to eat for a reason. So if you just have, my big thing is, again, that correlation between gut health and brain health, Ryan, is that most people don't realize that. And you really take for granted when you have a great day and you're happy and life is good. What most people don't realize is that, those happy feelings, those happy things are produced in your gut. Those happy hormones, everything is there. So, if you just, again, take a step back and look at, how do you view eating? How do you view life? Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you depressed? And again, 90% of the time, it really goes back to poor digestion. And if you focus on that, if you focus on just better, this isn't veganism or raw, but if you just focus on better digestion of whatever type of foods that you eat, that is the key. And I think that everybody can do that. It's just that it's very difficult for people to where to start. That's like the biggest thing. And I just said, well, how do you feel when you eat? And people will say, well, they don't really think about it. Well, okay, do you eat till you completely are overstuffed, or do you just kind of graze throughout the day? Those are all things related to really, better digestive health. So I went down a rabbit hole. I didn't mean to, but in either case.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
No, it's fine, because this is one of the things that people don't. I was talking to a client I think yesterday, the day before, and just said, "Oh, how long you had digestive issues for?" And they said, "Oh, just as long as I can remember." And it's just one of those things that people, it becomes part of them. They don't realise that it shouldn't be there. And that's unfortunate. The people that eat food, you're saying there, how do you feel when you eat? And they're like, oh, I don't know, do you get bloating? Yeah, I always get a bit of bloating. It's like, but that's not how it should be. And this is the sort of thing that people need to sort of realise, listen to their bodies. But it's just the way that things have gone, and the way that we've been, I suppose, just brought up and educated. It's not one of the things people start listening to their body, they don't understand. So it's really good when you're explaining things like that. It becomes clear to people.
Yeah, it's funny. So I do these classes, and part of just the fun part of this class that I do is that I'll put a bunch of foods, raw foods together. I'll maybe make some beans. I'll make some salsa. But what I'll do is I'll just make like these little sample sizes, and I'll set them all out. And then what I just ask people to do is just take one bite, or just a little tablespoon of the foods without thinking. Just go through, and what you'll find is that when you see those foods on the plates, or, and they're going through, you might come, it's very easy in the beginning. So it'll be like just regular fruit. People are always happy just to grab a piece of fruit, or, but as you start going through those list of foods, people start to stop. And that's, kind of telling. And so my point is that when I do that, is so they'll think, okay, well, what are you thinking? Well, I know that the last time that I ate, I don't really like that because it hurts my stomach. And I say, okay, exactly the point. So, again, that's what I'm trying to relay to people is that, when you start putting foods into your body, like, as I said, kind of that line of foods, you're going to come across something, again, that maybe gave you heartburn one time, that maybe, upset your stomach. I put refried beans on there, and 80% of the time people just stop and, won't eat it. And I'd say, well, why? Well, again, that gives me really bad gas and indigestion. I said, exactly. So, understanding that when people start to realize, okay, wait a minute, that specific food, or at least I incorporate bad digestion, gas, bloating with refried beans, then you can start to kind of paint a bigger picture of how all foods relate that way.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that's a really good. I think that's a really good way of doing things as well. We can go so many different ways with this. I've got my questions here, but we could just have a conversation about this for hours. It's really interesting listening to you talk about it, especially when people. Yeah, it's getting also people to realise that it's not just food just to eat, and it's like your energy. It's where all your health comes from, your nutrition. It's how is your body going to be able to, as I said before, digest and assimilate and use that food, rather than just, oh, I'm hungry, anything will do. And then people are like, yeah, but I don't feel too good after that food, or I didn't feel, or as you say, because of your foods, I could go into it, but probiotic foods, cultured vegetables, etc. They're so nutrient dense that they can have like not as much as they normally would, and they still feel really full, because their body's getting all the nutrients they need, rather than eating a big meal full of nothing and still wanting to eat more. So it's a big point when you talk about people seeing foods differently. It's something that's a really good point you made there. On just moving on quickly, because I know we could be on this for hours. On your website, you've got a quote that says, "It's no wonder modern societies struggle with epidemics like diabetes, heart disease, and recurring infections. The probiotics we need to stay healthy are being systematically killed in our food and depleted from our bodies. Below are the most common ways you can deplete your gut of healthy, immune-strengthening probiotic flora." Now, we've gone into this a little bit, but you've listed 7 things here, and I'm not going to go about all 7, but we'll have a talk about a couple of them. So, number 1, you've put taking antibiotic drugs, especially without probiotics. 2, you talked about, you say, eating processed foods, which we've gone into a little bit. Excuse me. 3, you said antibiotic-fed beef and other antibiotic-contaminated meat. We've gone on a little bit. Number 4, stress and lack of sleep. 5, many prescription medications, including acid blockers, NSAIDs, if I say, basically non-steroid anti-inflammatories, etc., and corticosteroids. If I can speak. Number 6, exposure to antibacterial ingredients and environmental toxins from foods, personal care products, cleaning agents, and other day-to-day sources. And number 7, infections and other disease conditions that affect your flora. Now, it's quite a comprehensive list, and you've done quite well in making 7 points there. So, ones I'd like to talk about just quickly, go through as quickly as possible, would be, first of all, because everyone thinks of bacteria being bad for them, so we're going to go into that in a minute, but antibiotic drugs, how do they affect our body, and how do they have a negative effect?
No, again, I'm going to use another illustration because I love illustrations, but the antibiotics, if you think about it, is bacterial, so anti-life or against life. And, let's say that you mind if I use the illustrations? That's okay, right? Okay, yeah. So I say that let's pretend that you're a mayor of a small town, okay? Everything's going great, everybody's happy, and all of a sudden that there is a rash of burglaries, some car thefts, maybe some spray painting. What would be the natural tendency as a mayor? It would be, okay, let's start, figuring out who it is. You start questioning people. But antibiotics, let's say that what would happen if, as mayor of that town, that you just threw everybody in jail. Didn't matter if they did it or not. You just went around and arrested everybody and put them in jail. Yes, it might solve the problem, correct? I mean, you might not have any more burglaries, but the thing is that you've taken out all of the good people that make that town great. And so antibiotics basically are the same things. You have something that is bad inside of your body. You take an antibiotic. Basically, what you were doing is you were putting everything in jail so that it can't be used. And so antibiotics are just things that go, yes, they will kill generally the bad bacteria, and there are many instances where they don't kill the bad bacteria. But the goal is to kill the bad bacteria. But unfortunately, it's not. They don't go out and try to find which ones are good and keep those. They just kill everything. And so when you take an antibiotic, basically you're killing the bad bacteria, you're killing the good bacteria. Basically, you're just making it a inhabitable flora or an inhabitable intestinal tract. So, by doing that, then what happens is you have really no bad bacteria, you have no good bacteria either. So that when you start to eat, you really have eliminated a lot of issues associated with breaking down the foods and making it healthier. Does that make sense? I think it did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good. Yeah. I mean, I've interviewed quite a few people. I've listened to loads of interviews in my time, and I mean, I do 2-3 hours of research a day, and that's one of the best pictures I've ever seen painted. That's a really good way of putting it.
Good.
Yeah, it's a really good way of putting it because. Yeah, I say it's anti-life, right? But that's rather than being pro-life, probiotics, antibiotics. But it's a really good way of putting it. So, so the next one, you talked about like conventional meat and having antibiotics in it. So we won't go through that. But so we'll go on to how exposure to antibacterial ingredients and environmental toxins from food and personal care products. For example, the antibacterial agents that you might see in hospitals, how do they affect us?
Again, I want to say that our bodies have bacteria all over. I mean, there are, and that's really going to be the big wave. I think, once people start to understand that you have huge good bacterial populations on your hands. in your ears, in your nose. If you breathe in toxins, you have good bacteria that tries to eliminate the bad toxins that you breathe in. So bacteria, bacteria is all over our bodies. It's not just in our gut. So when you take things, that are antibacterial, and in theory it sounds great, but again, it's non-discriminate. It kills everything. And so, when you have a cut on your hands, and that happens, you still have good bacteria on your hands that go to try to, seal up the cut and make it healthy and, get rid of the bad bacteria. You don't really think about it that way, but there is some, in your ears. And so when you take you put products or you use products that have things that are detrimental to that living bacteria, if you put it on your eyes or in your ears or, however you do it, you ingest it. Again, the same concept applies, is that basically you're trying to overpopulate the bad bacteria and underpopulate the good bacteria. And so, again, that's another rabbit hole. But the issue is that, as simple as whatever you decide that you want to put in your hair products or the foods that you eat, the minimal amount of what I call extra ingredients, goes to basically help that good bacteria as opposed, because the war in bacteria, the war of having good digestive health, Ryan, you're always going to have bad bacteria and good bacteria. So the thing is that do you want, are you tipping the scale and having good bacteria, or are you tipping the scale and having the bad bacteria? And all the antibacterial things you're always going to have bad bacteria. The thing is that you just want to make sure that you have enough good bacteria to fight that bad bacteria, over your lifetime. And all of the things that you take, antibacterial soaps and, things at the hospital, basically you're killing everything in your body.
Mm-hmm. It makes me wonder why they don't have a probacteria soap.
No, but there you go. I mean, the things that you probably could, and that's how I approach things. If you just try to think about, okay, you're just doing things to support the good bacteria. Mm-hmm. I bet you maybe in 15 years there will be something. It
comes to the point of what I always say to my clients. Whereas medical industry generally comes from fighting disease, we look at regenerating health, and as you said, repopulating the good guys, right, and putting more in there than the bad guys. So they're there to fight for you. I know you've got to go soon, so I'm just going to hit the last few bits, if that's okay, Gerard.
Sure.
So you've also put, for most people, this is another quote on your website, just to go for it. For most people, though, so you're talking about probiotics when going on. It says, for most people, unfortunately, when you're talking about probiotics and fermented foods, it leads to many more questions that they have. And that's from so I'll just say the quote to get it out there. All right, so for most people, though, that unfortunately leads to many more questions they have themselves or have heard from friends or the internet. Is sauerkraut or store-bought pickles probiotic? What does it mean when you say lacto-fermented? Is kombucha probiotic? Are fermented foods alcoholic? Is it good for my digestion? Now, these are the things. So, for you, store-bought sauerkraut and pickles for people, what should they be looking for?
Well, okay, so for me, growing up, sauerkraut, you would think that it would be healthy or fermented foods, but most sauerkraut or pickles are not fermented or naturally probiotic. And the way that you can tell is that if you just, it sounds so simple, but just look at the ingredients. If you see something like vinegar that is in the ingredient list, or if you see things like sugar, if is an added ingredient, generally that's not a naturally fermented product. They add those things to make it taste like a pickle, what you would think would be a pickle, or that sour taste with sauerkraut. And so the easiest way to do that is that the people that make, if you decide, okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start incorporating cultured foods and fermented, sauerkraut or whatever that may be, just, again, pick up the bottle. They're going to say that it's naturally fermented. They're going to say that there's live cultures in it. They're going to promote that. And so if you look on the bottle and you notice that there's nothing about that at all, and they don't talk about the cultures, the bacteria, then I would bet you probably 99% that it's not. And again, if you turn it to the ingredients, you could look. Vinegar will probably be the top one or two next to water, and then you'll see things like sodium stearate or just something, or I mean things that they add to preserve it on the shelf life. So just because you eat sauerkraut at a store does not mean that you're getting the probiotics. It does not mean that you're getting cultured foods. It may mean that you're getting some healthy aspect of it, but if you wanted the good cultures or the probiotics from those foods, the best way to do it is just to look at the labels. And as I said, they're gonna promote it. That's the way because that's what they want. If you look at some of the big large companies, they're not going to promote that, and because it's not true. They're just doing it for taste. And as I mentioned to you earlier, you add things to make it taste good, and so that people will buy it. It's not necessarily for the health benefits. So, if you wanted the culture foods, we have, here at a couple of health foods that I shop at, we now have a complete, a huge shelf devoted to cultured foods and probiotic foods. It's becoming more popular. But as I said, the easiest way to do that, they're going to promote it on the label itself. And then if you look at the ingredients, if you see things like vinegar, sugar, some sort of filler, sodium stearate, or magnesium, something along those lines, generally then it's not going to be probiotic.
Awesome. And they should be looking for things like raw health?
Doesn't necessarily, no, I mean, it could say that, but generally they're going to say something like with live cultures, or they're going to say, billions of strains. It could say raw, yes, but just because it's raw doesn't mean that it's probiotic.
No.
You could have a raw vegetable and it's not probiotic, but you have to do something to that raw vegetable to make it fermented or probiotic. So they're going to...
Yeah, what I sort of meant was, so if it says, if you're looking for the best and it says raw with added cultures and fermented, that's going to be up there.
If you can find something like that, yes, I would.
Awesome.
I would stock the farm on that. If you had something that said all three of those things, yes, I would load up on that.
Also, and you said just a little bit there. You said about if they added sugar to it. So a lot of kombucha, they do actually add raw cane sugar to it, fermenting process. What would be your opinion on that?
I mean, in all honesty, I mean, the way that I view making products and the way that I view things is that I have a bigger mission in life, because I find that people don't really know anything about kombucha or kefir water or anything. So what I'm trying to do is that to make it, yes, palatable for people. So I have no issues associated with getting people. Kombucha itself is just, as I said, it's a fermented drink. It's a fermented tea. And that's in a nutshell what it is. So you have that drink. There it is. When you start adding things to it, certainly to make it more palatable, that's where you have to be a little bit concerned. So I personally don't, and all of my products do have, all organic ingredients, but, organic cane sugar added to it, or, herbs or spices to get the flavor profile. But again, if you didn't want to do that, there's plenty of ways to have plain kombucha. I love the fact that I get, people that drink sodas every single day and then all of a sudden have a soda of mine and realize that it's a fermented product and it tastes exactly like a cola or cherry cola, but it's fermented, it's made with all organic ingredients. And that's my goal. So I want people that have never thought about probiotic foods to actually start incorporating those into their diet. And my goal is not just to hammer people about the health benefits of it, because I like the taste to speak for itself.
Yep.
And that's the key. And so if you have a fermented food, or if you make food, understand that once you ferment it, that you have basically achieved the digestive goal of what you want. Now you can make a decision that you could eat it just like that. You could mix it with some ham if you wanted to make it, or whatever, or you could put some hot sauce or something along that lines to make it more palatable to you. But understand that you still have that cultured food there that's going to be beneficial for your digestive tract.
Okay.
So you're not a better person or a worse person because that you have a cultured food that you have made and that you decide that you want to use it in your cooking.
Yeah.
As I said, the goal is really just to get people to eat it, and however you can do that.
And so
that's my belief.
So that's why you're out there fermenting everything you can.
That's the whole goal. Is that and I wrote a little article about it yesterday. Is that once people understand that you can ferment just about anything, and if you can ferment that, then the next step is making it taste good. And if you can do that, if you can have a fermented food that tastes great, that's part of your diet. Why would you eat any other way?
So your fermented beer, for example, that you're trying to you were going into on Instagram, at the moment you're formulating, you're sort of like trying to get the best formula for it, the best taste, but the benefits would be that it's be easy for the body to break down and digest. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, again, the drinks that I make, again, there's no grains or anything in it. Again,
Nope.
when you start adding things in it, it's hard for your body to digest. So yes, the beer itself, I could start a whole topic and a 45-minute conversation about beer in general, but it's to have something that tastes exactly like a beer that doesn't have any gluten or grains, that's also fermented as well. So
awesome.
yes, it's a fermented drink. And then what do you do with a fermented drink? Excuse me, Ryan. What do you do with a fermented drink? Well, you can make it taste like fruit juice. You can make it taste like Coke. I mean, that's what I'm saying is that your options. So what I'm trying to do on my what I call my beer biotic is basically just trying to make it taste exactly like a beer.
No, awesome. And is there, on your website, are there classes that people, because I'm sure that I don't want to keep you too much longer, but people would love to know how to make their own probiotics and fermented foods, etc. You hold classes for this, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of, my goal, Ryan, the bigger thing is just to really help educate people. So if you go to the website, whether it's jaredspropops.com or Jared's Probiotic, I give classes all the time, and whether
awesome.
It's 10 minutes, whether that's 30 minutes. I mean, I do have people that pay, but most of the 90%, 95% of the time, they're just free classes. And as I said, you can just log on, whether it's Facebook Live or something where I'll just show people how to make something or talk about probiotics or digestion or something. And as I said, because I want everybody to have that aha moment. And the thing is that I have a mission, as I said, to help educate people about the great things of probiotics and digestive health without sounding too scientific, and just understand that there are people like me and like you that are real people that have lived a certain way, and I'm not trying to force my lifestyle on anybody else. All I'm trying to do is just make great tasting foods that, oh, by the way, are healthy. So that's what I'm trying to do. Yep.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, Jared, thanks so much for being on the show. And I've kept you for a little bit longer than what we said, and I have to get you back on and go a bit deeper into a few things, but it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thanks for coming on and giving us your time. As I said, for everyone else out there, guys, jump over to Jared's websites. I mentioned I'll put them in the links, and you're going to get loads of beneficial information over there. So thank you very much for being on the show, Jared. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And I'd say we'll get you on again soon.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Ryan. Have a great day.
No worries. Cheers, Jared.
Thanks.
Bye.
See you.
So, guys, that was a pretty awesome episode. I think the way that Jared actually explained stuff in visual terms was pretty impressive. I've heard descriptions of those circumstances or those particular problems before, and I never actually heard them described in that manner, which was really refreshing and gave another dimension to it. It actually made me think about how I could maybe describe it better to people as well, so it's really good. And if you jump over to his website that we mentioned, he does give free tutorial lessons in probiotics, how to make fermented foods and fermented drinks, etc. So that'll be for any of you guys that wanted to learn how to do that, that'll be a great resource for you. As always, guys, if any of you are struggling through your own health issues and would like some, or feel like you need some coaching, head on over to www.reviveyourself.co, read all the articles we got there, just start engulfing information, and if you do want some coaching, then just reach out, go on the contact page, fill out our form, and I'll be in contact with you as soon as possible. Otherwise, guys, stay tuned for the next episode. We've got some requests to get some people back already, which is really good, but I might save them from a later date. And I've got a really good interview coming up following next Monday, with a lady called Hilary Boynton, who has her own book, the Heal Your Gut Cookbook, which is really good, and her story is a really good story too. So that is coming up, guys. It's actually a really good book, actually. I'm just looking at it now. There's some really tasty recipes in it, which are really... I'm going to give a go myself. So that's the next episode, guys. I'll see you soon. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy. Enjoy the rest of your day.
If you're struggling with gut issues, such as gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, indigestion, heartburn, and want to finally be able to eat the foods you love without the crippling after effects, then don't forget to head over to reviveyourself.co and pick up your free copy of The Healing Health Paradigm today.